The concrete floor was so cold, it made her teeth chatter. Sarah pressed herself against the basement wall, her fingers trembling as she tried one more time to get a signal on her phone. The single bar flickered in and out like a dying heartbeat. Above her, footsteps creaked across the old farmhouse floor, and she could hear Marcus's voice on the phone with someone, laughing about how nobody would think to look for her out here. She had maybe 10 minutes before he came back down those stairs. Her phone buzzed with just enough signal to send a text, and Sarah's shaking fingers flew across the screen. She meant to text her best friend Jennifer, the only person who knew she'd been dating Marcus for the past 3 months, the only person who'd expressed concern about how controlling he'd become. "Help," she typed frantically. "He locked me in the basement. Old farmhouse off Route 9, past the abandoned mill. He's upstairs. He said no one will find me. Please call police. I'm so scared." She hit send just as the signal died again. What Sarah didn't know was that she'd transposed 2 digits in Jennifer's number. The text didn't go to her friend's phone with the daisy case and the collection of coffee shop selfies. Instead, it landed on the encrypted phone of Vincent Kane, a man who at that very moment was sitting in the back of a black Mercedes, reviewing acquisition reports for his family's very legitimate shipping business and his family's very illegitimate everything else. Vincent stared at the message on his screen. He got a lot of texts. Threats, mostly. Occasionally desperate pleas from people who owed money. But this was different. The area code was local. The terror in those words felt real in a way that made something twist in his chest, something he hadn't felt since his sister died 5 years ago, something he thought he'd buried with her. He texted back immediately. "Who is this? Where exactly are you?" In the basement, Sarah's phone buzzed and she nearly sobbed with relief. But when she looked at the response, her stomach dropped. This wasn't Jennifer's usual bubbly style. She stared at the unknown number, then realized with growing horror what she'd done. She'd texted a complete stranger. Her fingers hovered over the screen. She could try texting Jennifer's correct number, but what if she'd used up the last of her signal? What if this stranger was her only lifeline? "Wrong number," she typed back. "But please, I'm not joking. I'm trapped." "He's going to hurt me." The response came in seconds. "I believe you. Tell me everything you can about where you are. Stay calm. Keep talking to me." Vincent was already leaning forward, tapping his driver's shoulder. "Turn around. We're going to Route 9. He texted again. "What's your name?" "Sarah," she typed, then added, "Sarah Mitchell. I'm 28. I don't know the exact address. It's a gray farmhouse, 2 stories. There's a red barn that's half collapsed about 100 yards away. We passed a sign that said, Moreland Dairy, maybe a mile back." Vincent knew Moreland Dairy. It had been abandoned for a decade. He also knew there were only 3 farmhouses in that area. "What does he look like? The man who locked you in?" Sarah glanced at the stairs. "Marcus Webb, 6 foot, blonde hair, blue eyes. He's wearing a brown jacket. He works at the bank downtown. Please, I can hear him moving around up there." "I'm 20 minutes away," Vincent typed. "Do you know why he did this?" Her hands were shaking so hard she could barely type. "I tried to break up with him yesterday. He seemed fine. Then, tonight, he said he wanted to talk. Drove me out here, and when we got inside he locked me in the basement. He said I belong to him, and he's going to make sure I understand that." Vincent felt that cold rage settling into his bones, the one that made him very good at the darker aspects of his work. "Sarah, listen to me carefully. I need you to tell me about the basement. Any windows, other exits. What can you use as a weapon?" She looked around the dim space, lit only by the crack of light under the door at the top of the stairs. "There's a small window, but it's boarded up from the outside. Some old tools in the corner. A shovel. Some paint cans. The door at the top is solid wood. I tried it. It's locked from the outside." "Good. Take the shovel. Stay away from the stairs, but somewhere you can see them. If he comes down before I get there, aim for the knees or head. Don't hesitate." "Who are you?" Sarah typed, because this stranger was giving her instructions like someone who knew about situations like this. someone who spoke about violence as casually as giving directions. Vincent hesitated. Then, someone who's going to get you out. That's all that matters right now. I'm 15 minutes away. Talk to me, Sarah. Keep your mind busy. How long have you known this, Marcus? She gripped the shovel with one hand, typed with the other. 3 months. He seemed perfect at first. Attentive. Sweet. Then he started getting weird about my friends, my phone. Last week he showed up at my work without calling first, got angry when I was talking to a male coworker. Classic pattern, Vincent typed back. He'd seen it before, though usually in the context of rivals and traitors in his world. Control. Escalation. You did the right thing trying to leave. You're smart, Sarah. You're going to get through this. I'm scared, she admitted, and something about confessing it to this stranger felt easier than it would have to Jennifer, to her parents, to anyone who knew her. Fear is good. It keeps you sharp. I'm scared too. She stared at that message. You're scared? I'm scared I won't get there in time. Sarah's throat tightened and tears blurred her vision. You don't even know me. I know you're a person who needs help. That's enough. Upstairs, Marcus's footsteps were coming closer to the basement door. He's coming, Sarah typed frantically. I can hear him. Shovel ready? Yes. You're strong, Sarah. Remember that. Whatever happens in the next few minutes, you fight. I'm 10 minutes away. You hear me? 10 minutes. Keep him talking if you can. Make noise. I'll hear you. The lock clicked. The door swung open. Marcus's silhouette filled the doorway at the top of the stairs, backlit by the kitchen light. Sarah, he called down, his voice that same gentle tone he'd used when they first met, when he'd brought her flowers, when he'd seemed like everything she'd wanted. I brought you some water. Are you ready to talk reasonably now? She gripped the shovel tighter, pressed herself against the wall where she'd be hidden until he got all the way down. Her phone was in her pocket now, still connected to this stranger who was coming for her, this person who'd given her permission to fight. I don't want to hurt you, Marcus continued, starting down the stairs. I just need you to understand that we're meant to be together. You're confused right now, stressed. Once you calm down, you'll see I'm right. Vincent's Mercedes was flying down Route 9, his driver taking curves at speeds that would have made anyone else nervous. Vincent had 3 other cars converging on the location, associates who knew better than to ask questions when he gave orders in that particular tone of voice. He'd pulled up everything he could find on Marcus Webb in the last 8 minutes. Clean record. Worked at First National. Decent credit. Lived in a condo downtown. On paper, he was nobody. Just another guy. That was what made men like him dangerous, Vincent knew. They hid in plain sight, wore nice suits, and nobody suspected what they were capable of until it was too late. His phone buzzed. He'd been watching it like a hawk, but no new texts from Sarah had come through. That either meant she didn't have signal, or something had happened that prevented her from texting. Faster, he told his driver. In the basement, Sarah had made a decision in the split second Marcus's foot hit the bottom step. She couldn't swing at him from hiding because the angle was wrong. She'd likely miss, and then he'd overpower her. So instead, she stepped out into the open, shovel held in front of her like a barrier, and she screamed. She screamed as loud as she could. A sound of pure fury and terror that echoed off the concrete walls and made Marcus freeze. Stay away from me! Her voice cracked but held. I swear to God, Marcus, you come 1 step closer, and I will bash your skull in. He blinked, genuinely surprised. This wasn't the Sarah he knew, the one who laughed at his jokes and blushed when he complimented her. Sarah, don't be dramatic. Put that down before you hurt yourself. I will hurt you, she promised, and meant it. He took another step. She swung the shovel, not quite reaching him, but showing she meant business. The metal blade whistled through the air. Marcus's expression changed. The mask of the concerned boyfriend slipped, and underneath was something cold and mean. You're really going to make this difficult, aren't you? Outside, Vincent heard the scream. He was out of the car before it fully stopped, running toward the gray farmhouse with the kind of speed that came from years of physical training and a significant amount of motivation. 2 of his men were right behind him. He'd texted them a simple instruction: get the girl out. Don't kill anyone unless necessary. The front door was unlocked. Vincent went through it like a force of nature. In the basement, Marcus had grabbed a piece of wood from the corner, evening the odds. He and Sarah were in a standoff, circling each other in the confined space. "You're going to regret this," he was saying. "When we get out of here, you're going to be so sorry." "We aren't getting out of here together," Sarah said, and then she heard it. Footsteps upstairs, heavy, fast, multiple sets. Marcus heard it too. His head snapped toward the stairs. "Who did you call?" She didn't answer, just kept the shovel up. The basement door flew open. Vincent came down those stairs 3 at a time, and Sarah got her first look at the stranger who'd promised to save her. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with dark hair and eyes that were almost black in the dim light. He wore an expensive suit that somehow made him look more dangerous rather than civilized, and when his gaze swept the basement and landed on Marcus with his makeshift weapon standing too close to Sarah with her shovel, his expression went absolutely glacial. "Step away from her," Vincent said, and his voice was quiet, controlled, far more terrifying than if he'd shouted. Marcus, to his credit, recognized a threat when he saw one. "Who the hell are you? This is private property. You're trespassing. I'll call the cops." "Call them," Vincent suggested. "Please, I'd love to explain to the police why you have a woman locked in your basement." 2 more men appeared at the top of the stairs, equally well-dressed, equally dangerous-looking. Marcus's face went white. "Sarah," Vincent said, still watching Marcus like a predator watching prey. "Come here. You're safe now." She didn't think. She just moved, stepping around Marcus, keeping her shovel up until she was close enough to Vincent that she could have reached out and touched him. He shifted slightly, putting himself between her and Marcus, a barrier of expensive fabric and coiled violence. "You texted me," Vincent said softly, glancing at her for just a second. His eyes weren't cold anymore. They were concerned, checking her over for injuries. "Wrong number, right number. Doesn't matter. You asked for help." "Thank you," she whispered. He looked back at Marcus. "You. Name." "You can't just—" One of the men at the top of the stairs started down, and Marcus caved. "Marcus Webb, look, this is a misunderstanding. Sarah and I had a fight. That's all. Couples stuff. It's none of your business." "Did he touch you?" Vincent asked Sarah. "No, he just locked me down here. Said he wouldn't let me leave until I understood we belonged together." Vincent nodded slowly. Then he moved, and it was so fast Marcus didn't have time to react. One moment Vincent was standing still, the next his fist connected with Marcus's jaw hard enough to send him stumbling back against the wall. The piece of wood clattered to the floor. "That's for scaring her," Vincent said conversationally. Marcus slumped down, hand to his face, eyes watering. "You broke my jaw!" "No, it's just bruised. I break jaws differently. Trust me, you'd know." Vincent pulled out his phone, took a photo of Marcus, then of the basement, then of the locked door from Sarah's perspective. "These are going to the police, and to several other interested parties. Your face is going to be very well known after tonight." He turned to Sarah. "Can you walk? Are you hurt?" "I'm okay," she managed, though now that the adrenaline was fading, she was starting to shake. "Just cold." Vincent shrugged out of his suit jacket and draped it over her shoulders. It was still warm from his body, and it smelled like expensive cologne. And something else, something clean and masculine, that made her feel, absurdly, safer than she'd felt in months. "Get him in the car," Vincent told his men. "Take him to the warehouse. Don't hurt him yet. Let him think about what's coming." "Yet?" Marcus's voice cracked. Vincent looked at him with absolute zero sympathy. "You kidnapped someone. You terrorized her. You made her think she was going to die tonight. Did you really think there wouldn't be consequences? You can't do this. I'll tell the police." "Tell them what? That you locked a woman in a basement and then some concerned citizens found you before you could do whatever sick thing you were planning?" Go ahead." Vincent gestured to his men. They hauled Marcus up the stairs, none too gently. Then Vincent and Sarah were alone in the basement, and the silence was suddenly overwhelming. "I really did text the wrong number," Sarah said, because she didn't know what else to say. "I meant to text my friend Jennifer." "Lucky mistake," Vincent said. He was studying her carefully. "You're in shock. Let's get you out of here, get you warm, and then we'll figure out next steps." She nodded, started toward the stairs, and then her legs just gave out. Too much fear, too much adrenaline crash, too much everything. Vincent caught her before she hit the ground, his arms solid and steady around her. "I've got you," he said quietly. "I've got you." He carried her up the stairs like she weighed nothing, through the farmhouse, and out into the night air that felt impossibly fresh and clean. Sarah gulped it down, started crying without meaning to, shaking in Vincent's arms. He set her carefully in the back of his Mercedes, slid in beside her, and told his driver, "Hospital first." "I don't need a hospital," Sarah protested weakly. "Humor me. You've been through trauma. Let a doctor check you over." She was too tired to argue. She pulled his jacket tighter around herself and leaned her head back against the leather seat. "Who are you, really? And please don't say someone who helps people, because people who help people don't usually travel with armed men and talk about warehouses." Vincent was quiet for a moment. Then, "My name is Vincent Kane. My family owns Kane Logistics, among other businesses. You might have heard of us." She had. Everyone in the city had heard of Kane Logistics, and everyone knew that the Kane family was connected, that there were rumors about their other business interests, the kind of things that didn't appear on tax returns. She couldn't quite say it. "My family operates in certain gray areas," Vincent said carefully, "but that doesn't mean we don't have principles, and one of my principles is that men who hurt women answer for it." "What are you going to do to Marcus?" "Nothing permanent, just educational." He met her eyes. "He'll never bother you again. I promise you that. And I promise you he'll face legal consequences too. I have connections with the DA's office, legitimate ones. He'll be charged." Sarah should have been afraid of this man, this stranger with dangerous connections who'd just had someone dragged to a warehouse. But all she felt was safe, protected. Like for the first time in 3 months, someone was actually on her side with the power to do something about it. "Why did you come?" she asked. "Really? You could have just called the police and given them the address." Vincent looked away, out the window at the dark countryside rushing past. 5 years ago, my little sister texted me for help. She was at a party. Her boyfriend was drunk and getting aggressive. She felt unsafe. I was in a meeting. I told her I'd call her when I was done. His jaw tightened. By the time I called back, she was in the hospital. He'd driven drunk with her in the car, wrapped it around a tree. She died 2 days later. "Oh, God," Sarah whispered. "Vincent, I'm so sorry." "I swore after that," he continued quietly, "that if anyone ever asked me for help again, I wouldn't hesitate. I wouldn't wait. I wouldn't assume someone else would handle it. So when I got your text," he looked back at her, "there was no question. I was coming." Something shifted in Sarah's chest. Something that had nothing to do with gratitude, and everything to do with the way this man was looking at her. Like she mattered, like her life had value beyond measure. "Thank you," she said again, but this time it meant something different. The hospital visit was quick. No injuries beyond some bruises from the concrete floor and the emotional trauma. The doctor wanted to call the police, and Vincent smoothly explained that they would be filing a report in the morning, that they had evidence, that everything was being handled properly. His confidence was absolute. People believed him. It was nearly midnight when they left the hospital. Sarah realized she had nowhere to go. Her apartment was where Marcus knew to find her. She couldn't go home. "Come with me," Vincent said, reading her mind. "My house is secure. Guest room, no expectations, just safety, until we get everything sorted." She should have said no. She should have called Jennifer, checked into a hotel, done literally anything other than go home with a man she'd met 3 hours ago, a man who operated in those gray areas he'd mentioned. but when Vincent held out his hand, Sarah took it. His house was more of an estate, tucked away behind gates and walls and security that looked subtle, but felt impenetrable. Inside it was surprisingly warm, not cold and sterile like she'd expected, but filled with comfortable furniture, artwork that looked personal rather than expensive for the sake of it, and photographs that showed Vincent with people who were clearly family. He showed her to a guest room that was bigger than her entire apartment, with its own bathroom and a view of gardens that were probably beautiful in daylight. "Everything you need should be in there," he said, lingering in the doorway. "But if you need anything, my room is 2 doors down. Don't hesitate." Sarah turned to him, still wearing his jacket. "I should give this back. Keep it for now." He smiled, and it transformed his face from dangerous to something else entirely, something that made her heart do an unexpected flip. "It looks better on you anyway." "Vincent." She didn't know how to express what she was feeling. Fear and relief and gratitude, and something else, something that felt like connection, like recognition, like their lives had just become tangled together in a way that wasn't going to be easily undone. "I don't know how to thank you." "You already did. You trusted me." He stepped back. "Get some rest, Sarah. Tomorrow we'll deal with everything else. Police report, restraining order, making sure you're protected. But tonight, just rest." She nodded, but as he turned to leave, she found herself saying, "Vincent? Why did you give me your jacket at the farmhouse? You were wearing a shirt underneath. You weren't cold." He looked back at her, and there was something in his eyes that made her breath catch. "Because you were shaking, and it seemed like the kind of thing someone should do. Take care of you." After he left, Sarah stood in the middle of the beautiful guest room and realized she was crying again, but this time it wasn't from fear. It was from the overwhelming strangeness of being seen, being valued, by someone who had no reason to care about her beyond basic human decency. She showered, washing the basement's cold and fear off her skin, and found expensive pajamas laid out on the bed that were brand new, tags still on, like Vincent had a guest closet stocked for any emergency. When she finally climbed into bed, she pulled out her phone and looked at the text thread with the wrong number that had saved her life. On impulse, she typed one more message. "Thank you for being the right wrong number." 2 doors down, Vincent's phone buzzed. He read her message and felt that unfamiliar warmth in his chest expand into something bigger, something he recognized as dangerous in an entirely different way than his usual work. He texted back, "Get some sleep, Sarah. I'll be here when you wake up." And he would be. Vincent made promises, and he kept them. The next morning, Sarah woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the smell of coffee drifting from somewhere downstairs. For a moment she didn't remember where she was, and then it all came rushing back. The basement, Marcus, Vincent. She got dressed in the clothes someone had left outside her door, her own clothes from last night cleaned and folded, and made her way downstairs following the coffee smell. Vincent was in the kitchen, which was a surprise. He'd changed from the suit into jeans and a black sweater that somehow made him look more dangerous than the expensive tailoring had. He looked up when she entered and smiled. "Good morning. How did you sleep?" "Better than I expected," she admitted. "Is that coffee?" "Italian blend. Help yourself." He gestured to the pot. "I also made breakfast, though fair warning. Cooking isn't my strongest skill. I'm better at threatening people than scrambling eggs." She laughed, which felt strange and good. "I'm sure it's fine." They ate breakfast together at the kitchen island, and it was surprisingly comfortable. Vincent asked her about her life, her job as a graphic designer, her family in Oregon. She asked him about his work, and he gave her the sanitized version, the shipping business and logistics and legitimate operations. But she could read between the lines. She'd grown up in the city. She knew how things worked. "So what happens now?" she finally asked. "With Marcus?" Vincent's expression hardened slightly. "He's being held somewhere safe. Not hurt before you worry, but he's thinking about his choices. This afternoon, you and I are going to the police station. You'll file a formal report, and I'll provide the evidence I collected last night. Detective Martinez is a friend of the family. She'll make sure it's handled properly. And then? And then Marcus Webb goes away for kidnapping and attempted assault. And if by some miracle the legal system fails, which it won't because I'll make sure it doesn't, he'll still never come near you again. I'll make certain of that. Sarah should have asked how. She didn't want to know. What about my apartment? My job? My life? I can't just hide here forever, and he knows where I live, where I work. Already handled, Vincent interrupted gently. I had some people check your apartment last night. It's secure, and I'm having additional security installed today. As for your job, I called your boss this morning, explained you had a family emergency and would need a few days. And hiding here isn't hiding, it's regrouping. She stared at him. You called my boss? I can be very persuasive. She was concerned about you, by the way. Said you're one of her best designers and to take all the time you need. Sarah put down her coffee cup. Vincent, you've done so much already. You saved my life. You can't just take over everything. I'm not taking over. I'm helping. He leaned forward, his dark eyes intense on hers. Sarah, men like Marcus count on their victims being alone, being afraid to ask for help, not having resources. You texted me, accidentally or not, and that connected us. I'm not walking away now. Why not? I'm nobody to you. A wrong number. You're not nobody. The words were quiet but absolute. You're someone who needed help and trusted me to provide it. That means something. Their eyes held for a long moment, and Sarah felt that connection from last night pull tighter, drawing them together in a way that had nothing to do with fear or gratitude anymore. Her phone rang, shattering the moment. She looked down and her stomach dropped. It was Jennifer. Oh, God, Sarah breathed. I never texted Jennifer back. She has no idea what happened. Answer it, Vincent said. Tell her you're safe. Sarah picked up. Jen, I'm so sorry. Sarah Mitchell, where the hell have you been? Jennifer's voice was frantic. I've been calling since last night. I was about to file a missing persons report. I went by your apartment and you weren't there. I called your mom and scared her half to death. Jen, breathe. I'm okay. I'm safe. Sarah glanced at Vincent. Something happened with Marcus. It's complicated, but I'm okay. She spent the next 10 minutes explaining, Vincent silently sipping his coffee and giving her privacy, but also staying close enough to be supportive. By the end, Jennifer was crying and demanding to come over immediately. She can come here, Vincent offered when Sarah hung up. Your friends should know you're safe. 20 minutes later, Jennifer burst through Vincent's front door like a tiny hurricane, wrapped Sarah in a hug that nearly knocked them both over, and then turned to Vincent with an expression that was equal parts gratitude and suspicion. You're Vincent Kane, she said flatly. I am. The Vincent Kane, the one whose family operates in gray areas, Vincent finished. Yes. I'm also the one who got your friend out of a basement before her psychotic ex-boyfriend could hurt her. Jennifer studied him for a long moment, then nodded once. Okay then, we're good. She turned to Sarah. Are you really okay? I really am. They talked for hours, Jennifer refusing to leave Sarah's side, Vincent making himself scarce, but never quite leaving them alone. Sarah appreciated it, the balance of giving her space but making sure she felt protected. That afternoon, Vincent drove Sarah to the police station. Detective Martinez was a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s who took Sarah's statement with compassion and efficiency, and who looked at Vincent with the kind of familiarity that spoke of past cooperation on cases that probably weren't strictly by the book. We'll pick him up today, Martinez promised Sarah. With your testimony and the evidence Mr. Kane provided, we have more than enough for charges. He's not walking away from this. What about bail? Sarah asked nervously. Already handled, Vincent said. I've spoken with the DA. Given the nature of the crime and his clear intent to harm, bail will be set extremely high. If by some chance he makes it, I'll know immediately. Martinez nodded. Mr. Kane has been very thorough. Outside the police station, Sarah finally let herself breathe. Is it really over? The immediate danger is, Vincent said. There'll be a trial, but that's months away. For now, you're safe. He paused. Sarah, I know you want to get back to your normal life, but I'd like to ask you something. What? Have dinner with me tonight. Not at my house, not because of the situation. A real dinner. At a restaurant. Just the two of us. Her heart stuttered. Vincent, I just got out of a relationship with someone who turned out to be a monster. The timing is terrible, he agreed. I know that. But I also know that from the moment I got your text, something changed for me. I can't explain it. I just know that I want to know you, Sarah. Not as someone I rescued, but as yourself. And if you need time, I'll wait. If you need space, I'll give it. But I had to ask. Sarah looked at this man who'd dropped everything to save a stranger, who'd been gentle with her trauma while being ruthless with her abuser, who made her feel safe and seen and valued in a way Marcus never had even at his best. Yes, she said. Yes, I'll have dinner with you. Vincent's smile was like sunrise. That night, he took her to a quiet Italian restaurant with checkered tablecloths and candles on every table. They talked about everything and nothing, favorite books and childhood memories and dreams for the future. Vincent was surprisingly funny when he relaxed, self-deprecating about his serious reputation, honest about the complications of his family business. I won't pretend my life is simple, he said over tiramisu. My family is powerful, and that comes with complications. But it also means I can protect the people I care about. Is that what I am? Sarah asked softly. Someone you care about? You're someone I'd like the chance to care about, Vincent corrected, if you'll let me. She reached across the table and took his hand, this stranger who'd become something more in the span of 24 hours. I'd like that too. Over the next few weeks, Sarah and Vincent fell into a pattern. He was patient with her, understanding when she had moments of panic or fear, never pushing for more than she was ready to give. But he was also steady, showing up when he said he would, calling when he promised, being exactly the kind of man Marcus had pretended to be, but Vincent actually was. Marcus took a plea deal to avoid trial, 15 years for kidnapping and attempted assault. His lawyer tried to paint him as a heartbroken boyfriend, but the evidence was overwhelming. The judge was unmoved. On the day of sentencing, Vincent sat beside Sarah in the courtroom, his hand wrapped around hers. You did this, he murmured as Marcus was led away in handcuffs. You were brave enough to fight, to ask for help, to testify. This is your victory. It's ours, she corrected. I couldn't have done it without you. 6 months later, Sarah moved into Vincent's house. Not because she was afraid or needed protection, but because she'd fallen completely in love with the man who'd answered a wrong number and changed her entire life. 1 year after that night in the basement, Vincent took Sarah back to the spot where it had happened. The farmhouse was being demolished, torn down to make way for something new. I bought the property, Vincent said as they stood in the driveway. I'm going to build something here, maybe a women's shelter. Something good, something that helps people like you who need a safe place. Sarah turned to him with tears in her eyes. That's perfect. He pulled a small box from his pocket and her breath caught. Sarah Mitchell, Vincent said, you texted a wrong number and changed my life. You made me believe in serendipity, in fate, in the idea that sometimes broken things lead to beautiful things. I love you. I love your strength and your courage, and the way you laugh at my terrible jokes. I love how you've made my house feel like a home, and I want to spend the rest of my life protecting you, cherishing you, and being worthy of that trust you placed in me when you told a stranger you were scared and needed help. He opened the box, revealing a ring that caught the sunlight and shattered it into rainbows. Will you marry me? Yes, Sarah said, laughing and crying at the same time. Yes, absolutely, yes. He slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her there in the driveway of the place where she'd once been terrified and trapped, reclaiming it, transforming it into the spot where she'd said yes to forever with the right man. Later, after they'd celebrated with champagne and shared the news with Jennifer and Vincent's family, after she'd called her parents in Oregon and listened to her mother cry happy tears, Sarah and Vincent sat on the balcony of their bedroom watching the sunset. Do you ever think about what would have happened if I'd typed the right number? Sarah asked, leaning against his shoulder. Vincent wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close. I try not to. The idea of not knowing you, not having you in my life, it's unbearable. I used to think Marcus seemed perfect, she said quietly. He checked all the boxes on paper, but he wasn't. He was a mask, a performance. You, though, you're real. Even the dangerous parts, the complicated parts. You've never pretended to be anything other than exactly who you are. And who am I? Vincent asked, curious. Someone good, Sarah said simply. Someone who shows up. Someone who keeps promises. Someone who turned a wrong number into the rightest thing that ever happened to me. He kissed the top of her head. I love you, Sarah. I love you too, my accidental hero. Not accidental, Vincent corrected softly. Fate. And as the sun set over the city, Sarah thought about how terror and trauma had led her to this moment, to this man, to this life she never could have imagined. She thought about the text she'd sent in desperation, the stranger who'd answered, and all the moments in between that had brought them here. She'd texted the wrong number, but Vincent Kane had been exactly the right person to answer. 3 months later, they were married in the garden of Vincent's estate, the same garden Sarah had looked out at that first morning and thought was beautiful. Jennifer was her maid of honor, crying through the entire ceremony. Vincent's brothers stood as his groomsmen, men who looked dangerous in their tuxedos, but who welcomed Sarah into the family with genuine warmth. During their vows, Vincent promised to always answer her calls, to always come when she needed him, to be her safe place in a world that wasn't always safe. Sarah promised to trust him with her fears, to build a life with him that honored both their strengths, to never take for granted the miracle of that wrong number. When the officiant pronounced them married and Vincent kissed her, Sarah heard Jennifer sobbing joyfully and thought about how strange life was, how a moment of terror could lead to a lifetime of love. That night at the reception, Detective Martinez approached them with a glass of champagne. Congratulations, she said. Though I have to say, this is the strangest happy ending to one of my cases I've ever seen. Strange, but good, Vincent said, his arm around Sarah's waist. The best things usually are, Martinez agreed. She looked at Sarah. You know, we get a lot of calls at the station from people in situations like yours. Most of them don't end like this. You got lucky. I did, Sarah agreed. But then she thought about the decision she'd made in that basement to fight, to reach out, to trust a stranger. Though maybe it wasn't just luck. Maybe it was also a choice. Maybe it was both, Vincent said, pulling her closer. Luck that you found me. Choice that you trusted me. As the night went on and they danced under strings of lights in the garden, Sarah caught sight of the stone memorial Vincent had placed near the rose bushes. It was for his sister, the one who'd texted for help and never got it in time. The one whose tragedy had made sure Vincent would never ignore a call for help again. Thank you, Sarah whispered to the memorial as she and Vincent danced past it. Thank you for making him the man he is. Vincent heard her and understood. His arms tightened around her. They'd both been broken in different ways, scared by different traumas. But somehow, in finding each other, they'd started to heal. Not perfectly, not completely, but honestly. Together. Years later, when people asked Sarah how she'd met her husband, she'd smile and say, I texted the wrong number. And when they looked confused, she'd add, but he turned out to be exactly the right person. And every time she said it, Vincent would pull her close and murmur against her hair, best wrong number I ever answered. Because some mistakes aren't mistakes at all. Some wrong turns lead exactly where you're meant to be. Some strangers are meant to become your home. And some texts, sent in fear and desperation to a number you misdialed, are answered by someone who will change your life forever. Sarah had been locked in a basement, terrified and alone. Vincent had been a stranger with a dark past and a dangerous present. Neither of them had been looking for love or rescue or redemption, but they'd found all three anyway, in a wrong number that became the right everything. Sarah had been Mrs. as Vincent Kane for 8 months when the black SUV pulled up outside her design studio. She was working late, putting finishing touches on a campaign for a children's charity, the kind of pro bono work Vincent encouraged, because he understood her need to do something meaningful with the platform his name had given her. The studio was in a trendy part of downtown, lots of glass and exposed brick, and she'd been so focused on her screen that she didn't notice the vehicle until its headlights swept across her window. Something about it made her stomach tighten. The way it idled there, the tinted windows, the deliberate positioning that blocked her car in. Sarah reached for her phone, Vincent's number already pulled up. They had an agreement after what happened with Marcus. She told him when she'd be home. He never made her feel smothered by it, but he always knew where she was. Safety without control. Trust without fear. The SUV's door opened. A man got out, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing an expensive suit that couldn't quite hide the gun at his hip. He looked directly at her window, and even from this distance Sarah could see the coldness in his expression. Her finger hovered over Vincent's name. Then the man held up his phone, showing her the screen. There was a message there, and even though she couldn't read it from this distance, he mimed for her to check her own phone. It buzzed. Unknown number. "Don't call Vincent. Don't run. Come outside and get in the car. We need to talk about your husband. If you alert him, people will die. You have 60 seconds. Sarah's hands started shaking. This was it. The thing she'd always known could happen when you married into Vincent's world. The dangerous complications he'd warned her about. The gray areas that sometimes turned black. She looked at Vincent's name on her screen. One call and he'd mobilize everything. But what if they meant it about people dying? What if calling him made things worse? 45 seconds, according to the countdown now appearing on her phone. Sarah made a decision. She took a photo of the license plate through the window, texted it to Jennifer with a message. "If I don't call you in 30 minutes, send this to Vincent and tell him someone took me. Black SUV, studio parking lot." She hit send, then deleted the thread from her recent messages in case they checked. Then she grabbed her jacket and walked outside. The man watched her approach with an expression that might have been respect. "Smart to come quietly. Who are you?" "Someone with a vested interest in your husband's continued good health." He opened the back door. "Get in." Sarah climbed into the SUV, her heart hammering. Another man sat in the back seat, older, silver-haired, with a face that looked like it had been carved from granite. He smiled at her, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Mrs. Kane, thank you for being reasonable. I didn't have much choice. We all have choices." The SUV pulled away from the curb, heading toward the industrial district. "I'm Antonio Russo. That name mean anything to you?" It did. Vincent had mentioned the Russo family exactly once, in the context of old rivalries and territories, and things that were handled before Sarah came into his life. They'd been competitors, enemies, the kind of bad blood that went back generations. "You're supposed to have a truce with the Kanes," Sarah said, trying to keep her voice steady. "We do, a very profitable one." Russo leaned back, studying her. "Your husband is an intelligent man. Ruthless when necessary, but intelligent. He understands the value of peace, of cooperation." "Then what do you want with me?" "There's a problem. Someone is trying to start a war between our families. Staged hits, forged communications, money trails designed to make it look like the Kanes are moving against us. Vincent doesn't know about it yet, because the attacks have been subtle. But my people uncovered the plot today." Sarah's mind raced. Why not just call Vincent? Why involve me? "Because I needed to know something first." Russo's eyes were sharp. "I needed to know if you were part of it." "Me?" Sarah's voice cracked. "I design graphics and volunteer at women's shelters. I don't know anything about your business." "Exactly. You're the perfect cover. The innocent wife nobody would suspect." He paused. "But I don't think you're involved. You're too genuinely terrified right now, and if you were working against us, you would have prepared better for this conversation." "I'm not working against anyone," Sarah said firmly, finding her courage. And Vincent would never use me like that. He keeps me separate from his business specifically to protect me. I believe you, which is why I'm bringing you into this. Russo pulled out a tablet, showed her surveillance photos of men she didn't recognize, financial documents that meant nothing to her. Someone is using your name, your identity, to move money through shell companies. They've created a parallel Sarah Kane online, complete with business accounts and transaction histories. To anyone investigating, it looks like you've been funneling Kane family money to set up attacks on my organization. Sarah felt cold all over. That's not possible. I don't have access to Vincent's business accounts. You have access to his personal accounts, joint accounts, household expenses. Someone with the right skills could use those as a starting point to create the illusion of more. He swiped to another document. Here, see this transfer? $500,000 to a weapons dealer, authorized by Sarah Kane 3 weeks ago. I didn't do that. I know. But someone wants me to think you did. Someone wants me to believe that Vincent is using his beautiful, innocent wife as a front for an operation against my family. And if I believed that, if I acted on that belief... He left the implication hanging. Sarah understood. If Russo came after her, Vincent would retaliate. If Vincent retaliated, the truce would shatter, and in the ensuing war, a lot of people would die. "Who's doing this?" she asked. "That's what I need your help to find out." The SUV pulled into an empty warehouse, exactly the kind of place Sarah had imagined when Vincent talked about his work but had never actually seen. Someone close to either your family or mine. Someone with access to information and resources. Someone who benefits from us destroying each other. The vehicle stopped. Russo gestured for her to follow him inside. The warehouse was cleaner than she expected, set up like a command center with computers and monitors and several more armed men who watched her with varying degrees of suspicion and curiosity. On one wall was a board covered in photos connected by red string, like something from a crime show. "This is everyone who had access to the information needed to set this up," Russo explained, pointing to the board. 3 of the photos were of Vincent's associates. 4 were Russo's people. One of them is a traitor. Sarah studied the faces. She'd met some of these people at events, fundraisers, the occasional dinner when business and personal life inevitably overlapped, despite Vincent's best efforts. They all looked dangerous in their own ways, hardened and calculating. "I don't know these people well enough to tell you who's betraying you," Sarah said, "but your husband might." "And that's where you come in." Russo handed her a phone, different from her own. "You're going to call Vincent. You're going to tell him you're safe, that you're with me, and that we need to meet. All of us together. Tonight. He'll lose his mind when he finds out you took me. Probably. But you'll calm him down. You'll explain that I did this to protect you, to protect both our families. And you'll convince him to come here, alone, so we can figure out who's trying to destroy the peace." Sarah took the phone. Her hands were steadier now, the initial terror giving way to something else. Determination. If someone was using her to start a war, she was going to help stop it. She dialed Vincent's number. He answered on the first ring. "Sarah?" "I'm okay," she said immediately. "I'm safe. I'm with Antonio Russo." The silence on the other end was absolute and terrifying. When Vincent spoke again, his voice was so controlled it scared her more than if he'd been yelling. "Did you just say you're with Antonio Russo? He didn't hurt me. Vincent, listen, please. Someone's trying to frame me, to frame us, to start a war between your families. He brought me in to figure out who. I need you to come to the warehouse district, the old Callahan building. Come alone. We need to talk, all of us, before this gets worse. Sarah, I swear to God, if he's hurt you, he hasn't, I promise. But someone else is trying to, and we need to stop them." She took a breath. "Trust me. Please. I know this is insane, but trust me." Another pause. Then, "I'm coming. But Sarah, if this goes wrong, if this is a trap..." "It's not. I'll see you soon. I love you. I love you too. So much." She hung up and handed the phone back to Russo. He's coming. You're calmer than I expected. I spent 3 months locked in a relationship with a psychopath, and 1 night locked in a basement, Sarah said flatly. This is terrifying, but it's also something I can actually do something about. That makes it better. Russo smiled, and this time, it was genuine. I can see why Vincent married you. 20 minutes later, the warehouse door burst open, and Vincent strode in like an avenging angel, fury and fear radiating off him in waves. His eyes found Sarah immediately, scanning her for injuries, and only when he'd confirmed she was unharmed did he turn that lethal focus on Russo. Explain, Vincent said, the single word carrying the weight of absolute authority and barely restrained violence. Why you took my wife? Russo held up his hands. Because someone is trying to make it look like she's working against me, against us, and I needed to know if it was real before I brought it to you. He gestured to the board. Look. Vincent looked. Sarah watched his expression shift from rage to confusion, to cold calculation, as he processed what he was seeing. When he turned back to them, something had changed in his face. Thomas, Vincent said quietly, pointing to one of the photos. Thomas Chen. He's been with my family for 12 years. I trusted him. You sure? Russo asked. No, but he's the only one in this group who's asked about Sarah's work recently. Casual questions seemed innocent at the time. What programs she uses, what banks she works with for her studio accounts. I didn't think anything of it. Vincent's jaw tightened. If it's him, I'll handle it. If it's him, we handle it together, Russo corrected. This affects both of us. Vincent crossed to Sarah, pulled her into his arms. She could feel him shaking, the adrenaline and fear he'd been holding back. Are you really okay? I'm okay, scared, but okay. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry you got dragged into this. I'm your wife. That means I'm part of your world, even the complicated parts. We face things together, remember? She pulled back to look at him. So what do we do? Vincent and Russo exchanged a look, and Sarah realized she was watching 2 apex predators recognize each other as equals, as potential allies rather than enemies. We set a trap, Vincent said. If Thomas is our traitor, he'll be reporting back to whoever hired him. We feed him information, see where it goes. Over the next hour, they planned. Vincent called Thomas, told him there was an emergency meeting about a shipment, gave him the wrong location, but included just enough real information to be believable. Then they waited. Sarah sat with Vincent's arm around her, watching these dangerous men coordinate like a military operation. She should have been terrified. She should have been demanding to go home, to be kept out of this world of violence and betrayal. But instead, she felt strangely calm. This was the reality of loving Vincent Kane. He'd never lied to her about what his life involved. And now that she was in it, she was going to see it through. 30 minutes later, Russo's tech person pulled up surveillance footage. Thomas Chen, getting into a car and driving not to the location Vincent had given him, but to a different address entirely. An address that, when they ran it, belonged to a shell company connected to a rival organization entirely. One that had been looking to move into territory controlled by both the Kanes and the Russos. There's our answer, Russo said grimly. Vincent's expression was carved from ice. I'll bring him in. We'll bring him in, Russo corrected. This is on both of us now. They left Sarah at the warehouse with guards, and she wanted to protest but understood why she couldn't come. Some things Vincent needed to do without worrying about her seeing them. He kissed her before he left, held her face in his hands, and promised he'd be back. I know, Sarah said. You always come when I need you. Always, he agreed. 2 hours later, they returned. Vincent's knuckles were bruised, but his expression was calmer. Russo looked satisfied. It's done, Vincent said simply. Thomas confessed. He's been working for the Martinelli organization, trying to destabilize us so they could move in. He won't be a problem anymore. Sarah didn't ask what that meant. She didn't need to. What about the false accounts in my name? Being dismantled as we speak, Russo answered. My people are good at making problems disappear. By tomorrow morning, it'll be like none of it ever existed. He extended his hand to Vincent. Truce holds. Stronger now, I think. Vincent shook it. Agreed. And Russo, thank you for bringing this to us instead of acting on false information. Thank your wife. She's the one who convinced me she was innocent. She's got steel in her spine. That one. Vincent looked at Sarah with so much love and pride it made her chest ache. I know. They drove home in silence, Vincent's hand wrapped around hers. The adrenaline was fading now, leaving Sarah exhausted and shaky, but also oddly proud. She'd faced down a Mafia boss, stayed calm in a crisis, and helped prevent a war. At home, Vincent drew her a bath, waited while she soaked away the tension, and held her afterward in their bed. I'm sorry, he said again, his voice rough. You shouldn't have had to deal with that. But I did deal with it. Vincent, I knew what your life was when I married you. I'm not some fragile thing that needs to be protected from reality. Yes, I was scared, but I also knew you'd come, and I knew I could handle it until you did. You were incredible, he murmured against her hair. So brave. So smart. When Russo told me you'd come willingly to protect people, that you'd stayed calm and helped figure out the threat, I was terrified, and so damn proud at the same time. I learned from the best, Sarah said. You taught me that fear doesn't mean helpless, that being scared and being strong aren't opposites. I learned that from you, Vincent corrected. That night in the basement, you fought even when you were terrified. You reached out for help even though you had no idea if anyone would answer. You've always been the brave one, Sarah. I just gave you someone to call. She kissed him, soft and deep, a promise and a claim and a celebration of being alive and together and safe. No more excitement for a while? She asked hopefully. Vincent laughed. I'll do my best. Though with you in my life, I'm learning to expect the unexpected. That's fair. I did text the wrong number. Best mistake either of us ever made. They fell asleep, tangled together, Sarah's ring catching the moonlight from the window, a symbol of promises kept, and dangers faced and love that was strong enough to survive both wrong numbers and right enemies, and everything in between. The next morning, Sarah woke to find Vincent already awake, watching her with an expression of such tenderness, it made her breath catch. What? She asked. Just thinking about how different my life would be if you hadn't misdialed that night. How empty. How lonely. He traced her cheekbone with gentle fingers. You saved me, Sarah, just as much as I saved you. We saved each other, she corrected, taking his hand and pressing it to her heart. And we'll keep doing it. Whatever comes next. Whatever comes next, he agreed. And Sarah knew with absolute certainty that whatever challenges their complicated, dangerous, beautiful life threw at them, they would face them together. She'd been a woman alone in a basement, texting a stranger in desperation. He'd been a man haunted by his failure to save his sister, carrying guilt like armor. Now they were partners, equals. Two people who'd found each other in the worst possible moment and built something extraordinary from the wreckage. The wrong number had led her to Vincent Kane, and Vincent Kane had led her to a life she never could have imagined. Dangerous sometimes, complicated always, but also full of love and protection, and the kind of partnership that could survive anything. Sarah had been terrified twice now in her marriage. Once in a basement with Marcus, once in a warehouse with Russo. Both times, Vincent had come for her. Both times she'd been strong enough to hold on until he did, and every time after, he'd held her like she was precious, irreplaceable, worth every risk and every fight. That was what love looked like in Vincent's world. Fierce and protective and uncompromising. Not safe, not simple, but real in a way that made everything else worth it. Sarah Mitchell Kane had texted the wrong number and found her forever. and she wouldn't change a single moment of it.